Coming up.
People think it's obvious that nothing except physical things are real. Well, just watch how they live for the next day or so.
The life and thought of Mary Midgley.
One of the UK's most prominent public intellectuals.
The trouble with this sort of talk, what one calls scientism, it distracts people from thinking about their own lives in the direct way that they can. And I think it takes the place which perhaps some sorts of theology used to take.
Midgley was one of the first ecofeminists. She also wrote about science, religion, and human nature.
She is a philosopher of complexity.
Our guest is Clare Mac Cumhaill, co-author of Metaphysical Animals, How 4 Women Brought Philosophy Back to Life.
Conflict, contradiction, complexity, that's just our lot. That's the kind of reality that we're trying to navigate.
We are much more complicated beings than this notion existently.
Mary Midgley, coming up on Philosophy Talk.
Hi, I'm Ray Briggs.
And I'm Josh Landy with an urgent message. In early April, we were informed that our grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities to produce the Wise Women series had been terminated by the current administration.
This decision also puts in jeopardy our recent proposal to the NEH to do 2 more seasons of this important series. That funding is now clearly off the table, leaving us in a very precarious position. Our future is on the line.
We recognize that everyone is facing challenging times, but if Philosophy Talk is something you value and want to see continue, please consider a gift of support right now at philosophytalk.org/support.
Every contribution helps, but if you can find a way to give $500 or more, we'll thank you by name in the credits for the show.
In the meantime, as always, thank you for listening.
And thank you for thinking. Can science explain everything?
Is there such a thing as human nature?
Aren't we more than just the sum of our genes?
Welcome to Philosophy Talk, the program that questions everything.
Accept your intelligence. I'm Ray Briggs.
And I'm Josh Landy. We're coming to you via the studios of KALW San Francisco Bay Area.
Continuing conversations that begin at Philosopher's Corner on the Stanford campus, where Josh teaches philosophy.
And the University of Chicago, where Ray teaches philosophy.
Today, it's the next episode in our Wise Women series, generously supported by a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. We're exploring the life and thought of Mary Midgley.
One of the Oxford Quartet, along with Elizabeth Anscombe, Iris Murdoch, and Philippa Foot.
Yeah, we got shows on all 4 of them in our series. Midgley was also a big public figure in the UK.
Right, I remember her being on the radio when I was a kid.
Yeah, she talked about the value of the humanities, about environmentalism, about science.
She loved science, but she was very critical of a thing called scientism, right? The idea that science can explain everything.
Wait, Josh, she thought there were things that science can't explain? I don't want to be dismissive, but that sounds a little bit woo-woo.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, she wasn't some kind of mystic. She just thought scientists should stick to, science and stay out of domains they don't belong, like ethics or metaphysics.
Metaphysics? You mean the study of how the world really is? That's exactly what science is supposed to tell us. Physics breaks the world down into its most basic parts. You can't get much more real than that.
No. Physics breaks the world down into its smallest physical parts. But it can't tell us how living things work, and it certainly can't tell us how our minds work.
Fine, maybe physics can't tell us that, but that's why we have other sciences. You've got biology, psychology, neurochemistry. Poke around long enough and you'll find a scientific explanation for everything.
That's a horrifying thought, Ray. And I don't think Midgley would buy it either. I think she'd say it doesn't matter how much data you compile. There's always going to be bigger questions that science just can't answer.
Yeah, like what?
Well, take one of Midgley's favorite examples. How should we think about non-human creatures?
I don't see how that's a counterexample to anything I've been saying. Science tells us that, hey, cheetahs need a lot of space to roam, but sloths, they're perfectly happy staying in one place. It gives us a lot of information about animals and about how we should treat them.
I think Midgley would object to your whole way of framing the question. How we should treat them. It's not a matter of how we should treat animals. We are animals. Midgley thinks that we human beings have invented this spurious category called animals, as though they're one big lump and we're over to the other side being all special.
Well, aren't we special in some ways? I mean, aren't we at least special in thinking that we're special?
Not even that. That's actually one of Midgley's coolest points. She says that when a bird is singing, it's really saying, hurrah, hurrah, it's me. It's mine. I've got it. I'm the greatest.
Okay, I love that. But I still don't understand how that tells us anything about the limits of science. It seems like science tells us what birds are thinking, and science tells us that human beings are animals too. Midgley thought it tells us even more. She thought science tells us that the Earth is alive and that we have to take care of the environment.
That's true. She was a big fan of the Gaia hypothesis, the thought that everything on this planet is part of one giant living system.
But I don't get it. If even the Gaia hypothesis is part of science, what is left that science can't explain?
That's a really good question, Ray. I bet our guest is going to have things to say about it. It's Clare Mac Cumhaill from Durham University, co-author of Metaphysical Animals, a really great book about the Oxford Quartet.
But first, we sent our roving philosophical reporter, Sarah Lai Sterland, to investigate Midgley's ideas about animals and the Gaia hypothesis. She files this report.
Philosophers often think humans are at the pinnacle of life on Earth, but Mary Midgley was more concerned about whether there be any life left to debate about. She said we should pay respect to Gaia, not as some New Age goddess, but as shorthand for the incredibly complex systems we depend on, but that we treat like rubbish. In 2014, she told biologist Tom Wakeford,
Our relation to the Earth is as close as our relation to the people round us on whom we most depend. We naturally love it. It has made us what we are. We are part of it. We're grateful to it and we respect it.
The name is based on a myth, but the Gaia hypothesis has actually been studied a lot by scientists. James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis first published a paper on it in the early 1970s. They observed that ecosystems, the ocean and the atmosphere, interact, and they form a self-regulating planet. The system maintained conditions that were conducive to life for 3.2 billion years, but by the 1970s, this balance was being disrupted. Mary Midgley was born in 1919 in London. She spent her early years in the countryside of Middlesex. She studied philosophy at Oxford and later taught at Newcastle. In 1950, she married another philosopher, Jeff Midgley, and they had 3 sons. It wasn't until the 80s, though, that Midgley started writing about the implications of the Gaia hypothesis. It grew out of her interest in zoology. As she told BBC broadcaster Sue Lawley in 2005,
What really made it all come together was that I got passionately interested in animal behaviour, in the accounts given by people like Jane Goodall and Conrad Lorenz and others of how animals actually behave.
reading about animal behaviour made her challenge the 17th century philosophers who claimed our intellect set us apart from other species. It led her to establish her lifelong thesis about our animal nature and its implications in her first book, Beast and Man.
She thinks that we should start doing moral philosophy by thinking about what human nature is, like what kind of animal is the human.
Ellie Robson is an ethics lecturer at King's College in London. She says Midgley argued that humans are not just thinking machines. We're shaped by both our biology and the world around us.
We're lots of different kinds of things. We're social, emotional, rational, playful, imaginative. Loads of these things we share with non-human animals.
So what does it really mean to live by Midgley's credo in the 21st century? Philosophy in the Wild is a new project that invites the public to explore this.
Our idea is to improve philosophy and come up with inspiring and hopeful visions of what it could be for humans and other animals to live together in a better way.
That's Mara Daria Kojakaru, a philosopher-poet in London. She's the project director for Philosophy in the Wild. The project's goal is to convene local groups of philosophers, scientists, artists, kids and other species of animals around the globe to explore how they can live in caring communities. In April 2025, for example, a writer and a local artist took 6th graders to Norway's remote Vega Islands. There they learned how humans and wild eider ducks cooperate as part of a 400-year-old tradition. Islanders build shelters for the ducks during nesting season to protect them from predators. After the ducklings leave, humans collect valuable down from the nests. A duvet's worth can sell for thousands of dollars.
Through evolution, a relation has evolved between humans and other animals where both gain from the relation. So it's not exploitative.
Other communities from Brazil to Bangalore will convene to discuss their relationships with dolphins, bats, wolves, seals, bison, and feral dogs. Each animal-human team is tasked with composing a quote-unquote multi-species poem.
A poem that includes also visual or scent elements.
Cumhaill believes smell connects us to our animal nature, so each site has kits with tins and glycerin to extract local scents.
It's a playful and creative approach to language and human-animal relations.
Kids, and the kids inside of us, are key participants.
I think the best review I once got from a workshop on multi-species poetry for children was better than the Halloween party last week. What do you want more?
Mary Midgley said philosophers should provide tools to help people unclog muddled thinking. Poetry envisions new possibilities.
When people get stuck by being obsessed with a single way of looking at things, stand back and see what the neighbours of this are.
For Philosophy Talk, I'm Sarah Lai Sterland.